A story as old as time is the examination between parents and children and how they just mesh with one another, or sometimes how they don't mesh with one another. And that goes back all the way to the Bible with God and Adam and Eve, and then Cain and Abel, and all that junk. And it really is interesting how every generation has their own version of this parent and children dynamic. One of my favorites is Ordinary People by Judith Guest. I think this book is absolutely phenomenal, and it has personally helped me get a grasp on how people deal with depression and how they choose to overcome it or be sunk by it. Personally, I identify with the Conrad character just because that's who's closest to my age. But maybe down the road when I read it, I will more or less align myself with the Cal character or maybe even the Beth character, but I highly doubt that I would side with the Beth character, but it's that preconceived notion that I am looking to examine here today. We are going to not not justify Beth Jarrett's actions, but we're going to try to explain some of her actions in a more academic context, I guess we could say. So we're not going to try to explain Beth Jarrett's toxic behavior towards her child. We are just going to try to understand the motivations behind her. So the book was released in 1976 and the movie came out in 1980 and had a pretty good year at the Oscars. Timothy Hutton won an Oscar for his portrayal of Conrad, and Mary Tyler Moore, America's Mom, one of them, was nominated for Best Actress for her portrayal as Beth Jarrett, which was totally a departure from her usual comedic stylings a la Laura Petrie and Mary Richards in the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And the Academy really likes to honor transformations, while really not a physical transformation, more of like a personal transformation. This is so not her to portray someone dark and brooding and manipulative. And see, these are a bunch of the adjectives that come up when you think about Beth Jarrett, is someone who is cold and not willing to connect with anyone. We're going to be looking at three primary sources of text. We have the book, the movie, and you might not know this, but there was a play adaptation. So two of these are adaptations of the base text, but each one adds a specific element to Beth's character that I think that are important in understanding who she is. So right away, she's at kind of a disadvantage because the book is written through the eyes of Cal and Conrad, and it goes back and forth between the two of them, so we never actually get a chance to get inside Beth's head. And if we did, I can only imagine what it would kind of be like. The first appearance of Beth in the book is when they are having breakfast right before Conrad goes back to school. She asks Cal if he called him to breakfast, and then she goes and talks about golf, but then she goes and talks about his clothes, and Beth says he's got a closet full of decent things and he goes off every day looking like a bum, Cal. That's the style. Decency is out, chaos is in. And as her brow lifts, he nods. Okay, I'll talk to him. And the other thing, too. What other thing? Stopping by the Lazenbys on the way home, Carol called again last week. It's such a little thing. So our first glimpse of Beth Jarrett is that she is firmly wishing for things to go back to normal, and they're not going back to normal as quickly as she likes. She wants Conrad to dress properly. She wants him to resume his relationship with his brother's friends, despite the fact Conrad was never as close to them as Buck was. Beth's first appearance in the play, she has the first line in the play, which is also kind of telling. But she's yelling off stage. Conrad is sitting there, and she's only addressing Cal and talking about Conrad like he isn't there. But because Conrad isn't speaking up for himself, she decides that she's going to clear the table because she takes that as sort of an act of defiance, as something where he does not want to eat the food that he's made for her. A deliberate spite on Conrad's part to her. Beth's first appearance in the movie is also at the breakfast table, and she decides to throw away French toast because you can't save French toast. And it's only because Conrad said that he wasn't hungry. Again, something that she perceives is a deliberate attack upon the food that she has made for him. So right away, we know that something is fishy. The story doesn't quite tell us what that is at this point in time, but we know from previously, well, from pop culture that she is having a very hard time forgiving and understanding Conrad for events that have taken place in the past, as all great dramas do. Another fascinating moment that I always love to look at is Conrad comes home, but he finds his mother in Buck's room, just kind of looking around, taking him in, and Conrad comes home, and she's embarrassed, not outwardly, but just more frightened that he caught her in a moment of vulnerability, and they just do not connect when he's talking about a trig quiz. He says, "Fine, great. He gave back the trig quiz today. I got an A on it." "Great, terrific," she says. "Well," he says and shrugs, it's just a quiz." That's how it goes down in the book. In the movie, things are 10 times more awkward. Beth says that she was awful at trig, and Conrad's like, "Oh yeah, you took trig?" And then she just kind of looks off into space, and she's like, "Did I take trig?" And then says that she bought some new shirts for him. She is so unwilling to connect with her son that it's almost comical how much she will avoid it. And something I always kind of perceived from this moment is that she thinks that Conrad will attack her intelligence or just her character in general, and that's why she chooses not to say anything further about trig and instead backpedal, just kind of treat it like it's like a non-thing that they have in common. And then of course there is Christmas, when her parents come over and they're trying to take a picture. Cal wants a picture of just Beth and Conrad, but Conrad is visibly uncomfortable. Beth is considerably less visibly uncomfortable, but more verbal, like, "I don't want to, let me take a picture of you and the men." And then Conrad has an outburst and everything is super awkward. Beth just does not want to stand next to her son, with the memory of her other son looming just in the background. And again, it comes down to that being together kind of thing. Beth does not want to associate herself with Conrad, who she considers to be kind of an outlier in their family, as someone who needs more help than she's able to provide or give, because she just doesn't know how to provide the kind of support for her son that he needs, because she has either never had to give that kind of support, or because she just does not understand how that support needs to be given. And there is a scene in the movie that is not in the book or the play that is also very telling. I'll just play part of it here.
Beth. I think it can be saved. That was dumb. It was just so dumb. I don't think he's happy in school.
Well, have you talked to his teachers?
I don't think people want to be with him. He provokes people.
Well, here, why don't you do this? It's an awkward age. Thank you. Maybe he needs a change. You sure he's eating enough?
Yes, Mother, of course.
I think he'll be all right. If you are firm with him, hmm?
I think maybe he should go away to school. So I just don't know how to deal with him anymore.
Who would make that decision?
I don't know. I suppose this doctor he's seeing.
What on earth sort of doctor would make that decision for you?
A psychiatrist.
I thought we were all finished with that.
No.
So the plate works as a metaphor. There's a clean break in the plate. It could symbolize her and Conrad, or her and the rest of the family. Doesn't really matter. But the point of the matter is there is a clean break. She thinks it can be fixed. Her mom's standoffish behavior about Conrad's therapy tells you all you need to know about Beth's views of therapy, because she quietly agrees with her mother. So there's a hint here that this isn't just Beth's own thoughts. This is more of a generational problem when it comes to understanding mental health and just the betterment of somebody after a traumatic life event. Beth doesn't know how to give this kind of emotional and mental support to her son because she probably didn't receive it when she was going through various trials, if she had any. But we don't know because the book doesn't tell us. I'm having a hard time finding it in the book, but there is a moment in the movie where Cal and Conrad go get a Christmas tree, and Beth comes in and starts passively aggressively acknowledging the fact that Conrad quit the swim team and was not telling them. Somebody else was the one to tell Beth instead of Conrad, but she takes that as a deliberate, again, another deliberate attack from Conrad to her, even though Conrad was just more embarrassed to tell his family other than doing it as an act of malevolence. And that erupts into like a whole confrontation that is in all three versions of this story, but there is one line that I cannot find in that conversation in the book that is in the movie, as well as I think in the play. Nope, not in the play. It's just in the movie, where Conrad is mad at his mom for never coming to visit him when he was having his psychiatric help. And then she says, well, Buck never would have been in the hospital. And then it just goes downhill from there. It's one of the cringiest moments in the story for me personally, because it shows that Beth really thought higher of Buck than she does of Conrad, especially in this moment. And that is also reinforced later when Cal is talking to Conrad's therapist of his own volition, where he says that Beth's love for Buck was very special, and he always felt that Beth felt more affection for Buck than she did for Conrad. But then later, when Cal goes to confront Beth about this when they're down in Texas at their golfing trip, Beth gets offended when she is confronted with the information that Conrad thinks that Beth hates her. And of course, they're kind of in public, so Beth is like, mothers don't hate their sons. Is that what he tells you? He just has you wrapped around his little finger, and I will not be manipulated that way. But also in that same golf scene, we understand how much Beth is actually grieving for Buck, their lost son. And the line where she says, Happy, Ward, you give us all the definition, will you? But first you'd better check on those kids every day to make sure they're good and safe, that nobody's fallen off a horse or gotten hit by a car or drowned in that swimming pool you're so proud of, and then you come and tell me how to be happy. Beth is not as happy as she appears on the outside. She is not as put together as she is on the outside, but due to her mother's or her parents' tampering and not giving her any emotional support, and the fact that she does not know how to talk to Conrad, and everything that she takes as an attack, and Cal's vicious love for his son that she is probably jealous of because Cal does not treat her that way, but Cal wants to treat everybody that way. All those factors combined have created a broken woman. That's really her big moment in terms of trying to reach out for help in her own Beth way, but more of it reading as an attack on others because she would rather play defense than accept help for her problems. And that is where we reach the apex of the stories, where obviously Conrad is getting better. He's rebuilding his relationships, especially with Janine and his father. And Beth keeps shutting people out because of her refusal to accept that anything's wrong. Conrad's acceptance when talking to his therapist and talking with Janine about his issues help him to confront them. But Beth's refusal to talk about anything is what sinks her. And because she just can't deal with that sort of saccharine attitude around the house, she just decides to leave. She tells Cal that she feels the same way she has always felt for him. And that, I think, is in the book and the movie, but not in the play. In the play, she tells Cal that she loves him. And she also tells Conrad that she loves him, but she just doesn't know what to do anymore. And so she leaves. The play really paints Beth more so as like a selfish kind of figure, especially at the end when she's leaving. There is that talk between them. She just doesn't go. in her last scene is Cal and Beth's confrontation. She actually talks a little bit to Conrad. Conrad's just like, we need to talk about Buck, and she says, don't say his name to me like that. And then Conrad says, I'm not trying to hurt you. I swear to God, I'm not trying to hurt you. And she says, that's just it. You are hurting me. It doesn't matter whether you mean it or not. And then she says, Conrad, I don't know what this need of yours is. I don't know why you feel you have to talk to me about this. Then Conrad says, Mom, it's not just for me. And she says, no, then who is it for? Have you thought it all through? Have you thought about whether you're ready for all of my feelings about it? And Conrad says, I don't know, I'll try. And then she says, no, it's over. There's no point in talking about it anymore. And then she leaves. So in the play, there's more of an understanding that she knows that there's a problem, but she's unwilling to tackle it in any meaningful capacity because there's no point in talking about it. It's in the past. And the past doesn't affect the future. Right? I always think that I have always thought that the character of Beth Jarrett is one of the most fascinating characters in literature, in more modern literature, I should say. I don't know. I'm still figuring things out about her whenever I watch the story or read the story. There are more pieces that fall into place, but I don't think we will ever truly understand a character in fiction because part of it is up to the author's intent, but a lot of it is up to a reader's interpretation. And I hope you follow this interpretation of mine, as convoluted as it may have been. But we understand that Beth is not an ordinary person. She is not who she is, as she says on the outside. She's grieving, she's hurting, but she's unable to accept help. And that is the key difference between her and Conrad. And that's why the story ends so tragically. This story has helped me deal with my own demons, especially when I was younger, when I read it for the first time. I realized some people just aren't willing to talk about things, and a lot of people are, but you have to find those good people that are willing to help and support you. And who those people are is different for everybody, whether that's a friend or a therapist or your parents. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is that you talk about how you feel and that you talk about them sincerely. You get to the real root of the issue. And I wish I'd figured that out earlier. We're ending on a rather morose note, but I feel that it's important. This is Dustin signing off, but only for now.